Sugar is a key but often misunderstood element to a perfectly balanced cocktail. And today I'm going to explain to you why it is so important. We've all had overly sweet cocktails. We've all had cocktails that were a little too tart. But that is why getting the balance is perfectly right. But let's back up a little bit. If you watch my video on Introduction to Cocktails, which you can find right here, I talked about the 5 key ingredients to an original cocktail, and sweetener being one of them, and actually being a key component and one that really ties the whole cocktail together. And one of the things that, as a bartender, that kind of really frustrates me in this profession is people's misunderstanding of sugar in a cocktail. Sugar or sweetener in a cocktail serves 2 to 3 key roles within a cocktail. 1, it cuts the burn of the alcohol and makes it more palatable. And 2, it provides a body for a cocktail. For anybody sitting there thinking, oh, but I don't like sweet cocktails, I challenge you and I beg you to please try a daiquiri or a caipirinha without sugar. And you will find that it is an incredibly flat cocktail with not much body. You're gonna have sharpness from the lime and you're gonna have that burning sensation from the rum or the cachaça. And the other part about this that really pisses me off, quite frankly, is that all of these people who order skinny margaritas or skinny cocktails or who ask for a cocktail with no sugar. And a lot of this comes from people thinking, oh, but like sugar's bad for you, all this and that. Well, I have news for you. Alcohol in your body gets broken down into sugar. So I understand being health focused and health conscious, but you should understand that drinking alcohol, you're basically intaking sugar anyway. So having less sugar doesn't actually help you. All it does is make you have a crappy cocktail. Now, again, I understand that there are cocktails that are overly sweet and there are cocktails that are not sweet enough, but that does not mean that a sweetener is not required in a cocktail. So now that we've talked about the importance of a sweetener in a cocktail, let's talk about how it's practically and actually used in a cocktail. So by far the most common version of a sweetener in a cocktail is gonna be simple syrup. It is called simple syrup because it is 1 part water to 1 part sugar. So that table sugar that you'll find in your house, if you were to take a cup of that and a cup of water and mix it together, voila, you have simple syrup. Pretty simple. Simple syrup. Simple. Next common sweetener you might find in some cocktails is a Demerara sugar syrup. These are usually made from like sugar in the raw, and these have a bit of an earthier quality to it. It isn't so, it's not as refined. It has a lot more of that earthy flavor and gives a really nice body to any cocktail that it's used in. The next 2 really commonly found syrups that I want to talk to you about are agave syrup and honey syrup. Both of these are derived from natural sweeteners. Agave syrup comes from, I make it from agave nectar, which comes from the agave plant that makes tequila and mezcal. And honey syrup comes from honey. And so what I love about these is that they're not processed. They're not made the way that regular sugar is made. So they end up being at least a little bit more honest, I guess. They're not, you know, a refined sugar that then gets broken down and made into a syrup. You have straight up just regular agave nectar and straight up just regular honey. And for both of these, the proportions are 2 parts of the natural sweetener with 1 part water, just to make it more of a syrup. So these are 2 very, very easy to make and delicious additions to any cocktail that you want to make. And they have fantastic recipes that call for both. They each have different characteristics. They're both a little bit, the agave is a little bit earthier. The honey has that typical honey taste, but it adds a beautiful silky body to a cocktail when used correctly. Both of these are 2 easy, excellent options to add to your repertoire. And you know, for example, honey doesn't go bad. So keep honey on hand, make a syrup when you want, add a little bit of water. You're gonna have a sweetener in most cases. But these 2 are excellent additions to anybody who wants to make cocktails, and I highly recommend you using some. So if you remember at the beginning of this video, I talked about sweeteners serving a 3rd possible purpose in a cocktail. And that purpose is to not only provide body, not only provide a sweet element for a cocktail, but you can do it in a way where it actually imparts its own specific flavor to the cocktail. And that actually is the case for pretty much any of these because they all have their own inherent flavor. But what I'm alluding to more is making fruit syrups, which is what we do a lot here at varieties. So for example, we make passion fruit and pineapple syrup. For both of these, I essentially take the juice of that fruit and add sugar to it to make a syrup. And the reason being is that it actually keeps these fresher longer. It allows me to keep them for about a week, if not 2 weeks. I try not to pass 1 week by keeping them. And that preserves it longer than if I were to just leave the juice fresh. So for example, the pineapple juice, I juice fresh pineapple. I make that juice, I strain it twice to get all the pulp and the different bits out of it. And then I add sugar to it and make a syrup. That way I have pineapple syrup for about 1 to 2 weeks. Same thing with the passion fruit. I get passion fruit puree, add sugar to it. I don't overly sugarify it. It doesn't create this giant sugar bomb, but what it does is it provides body, it provides flavor, it provides sweetness for a cocktail. All around, it helps in 3 different ways, and it's an excellent way to preserve fruit juice. We also make an acai syrup, we make a mango syrup, I also make a cashew syrup from the cashew fruit. And outside of fruit juices, you can even make syrups with different spices as well. So for example, you can make a cinnamon syrup. Great way to introduce cinnamon flavor into a cocktail without having to use, real cinnamon of any kind. It's kind of one of the only ways to add cinnamon as a fresh flavor to the cocktail. And then we also make a ginger syrup. So we juice fresh ginger and add sugar to it. Excellent way to add the ginger flavor to a cocktail. And these are all super valid ways of not only adding some texture, adding a little bit of sweetness, and also adding and infusing a flavor into a cocktail. None of them overpower, none of them are overly sweet, none of them are gonna turn it into a giantly mega sweet cocktail, but you have to learn how to properly balance them. If you were to unload an entire 3 ounces of one of these into a cocktail, sure, yeah, it's gonna be a little sweet, but that's why you need to properly balance your cocktails. And then you also have sweeteners like orgeat, which is a almond-based sweetener that also has a little bit of specific flavor. It has a little bit of orange blossom water, and I add a little bit of cognac to add a good body to it and a good flavor, and to also preserve it a little bit more. This is a very, very traditional ingredient for certain tiki cocktails and found in a lot of different cocktails, especially it is a key component in a Mai Tai. And so orgeat is one of those as well that adds texture, flavor, a little bit of sweetness, and really completely transforms a cocktail. Without orgeat, a Mai Tai isn't a Mai Tai. And then the last sweetener I want to talk to you about is that sometimes sweeteners don't have to actually just be sugar-based. And similar to how the orgeat that I make fresh also has cognac in it, there are certain spirits that can act as a sweetener. For example, Luxardo's maraschino liqueur is a cherry-based liqueur that is actually used as the primary sweetener in a couple of classic cocktails. If you've seen the video that I did on aviation, which you can check out right here, that recipe calls for Luxardo maraschino as essentially the biggest portion of it as the sweetener for that cocktail. It is a spirit, it has alcohol, it substitutes itself into the cocktail in place of a traditional sweetener. So there you have it, guys. I hope this video provides just a little bit of insight into why sweeteners and sugar is really important for a cocktail. I get it, everybody's health conscious, but if you are so health conscious, maybe you shouldn't be drinking. To have a real, well-balanced, properly balanced cocktail, you need a little bit of sugar. I'm not saying add a ton of it, but it's definitely needed and definitely necessary. But that's enough from me. I'm gonna make myself a cocktail, and then I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.